Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another Scary Stories video. And today we're going to be getting into some more subscriber scary stories that you guys submitted and one of the viewers of this channel. So that's awesome. And if you want your story read in a future video potentially, just email it here. And yeah, thank you so much for stopping by. I really love these stories. You guys are great writers, great storytellers, and really creepy if they are true. And these are true scary stories, so that makes it even scarier. And yeah, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's the channel's goal to be at 500,000 subscribers before the end of the year, so please subscribe. And all right, without further ado, let's get into some disturbing, true, scary stories. All right, this is the first story. Let's get into it. Hey Snook, it's been a while since I started listening to you, and man, your narrating is so addictive and soothing at the same time. Nowadays, I can't sleep unless I listen to one of your videos. Hey, thank you, man. And anyways, let's get into the story. First of all, forgive me for my poor English, as English is not my first language. This might sound crazy, but it is 100% true. It was November 2022. I don't remember the actual date. I woke up from my sleep randomly. Didn't think much of it at the time, but the next day, the same thing happened, but this time, there was a knock at my window. Like someone tapped it 2 times on my window. I got a little scared, but did not think of it as a big deal. The third day was terrifying. I woke up around the same time and saw a shadow of a 7 to 8 foot man staring at me with its white eyes. I was so terrified that I nearly screamed, but I simply couldn't. I was just too scared to move a muscle. The shadow was pitch black, but it did not vanish in the dark because of its 2 glowing eyes. The shadow slowly started approaching me, and I just watched as I thought about how I can live. The shadow stood beside my bed and whispered in my ear, "I don't want to hurt you. I just want to help." I don't know why, but to my surprise, I felt a sudden relief. The next thing I know is that I woke up in the morning with my body aching like hell. I just thought it was just a nightmare and continued with my day. Ignoring the incident like it was just a nightmare worked for a week. After exactly 1 week, I woke up at midnight, saw the shadow in front of me. It was showing me some gestures I did not know existed. Then it spoke to me again. "I know you thought it was just a bad dream, but believe me, it wasn't." I replied, "Who are you and what do you want?" It replied to me, "Well, I go by many names, but for you, it's Einstein, and I don't want anything from you. I just want to guide you." I was silent for a moment. After a while, he broke the silence and said, "But if you tell this incident to anyone else, it won't be good for you." After that night, I saw him every night. We didn't speak all the time. He came and told me what to do, and the next day and went away. He guided me by telling me stuff that I don't go to school tomorrow, or don't take your breakfast tomorrow, etc. It was nearly the end of the year, December. I was heading back from my school. Suddenly, I saw a guy staring from distance. Didn't think much of it until he tried to approach me. He asked me, "You see him every night, don't you?" I was shocked. Is he talking about Einstein, or is this a joke or a prank or something? He told me again, "If you don't want to answer, I won't force you, but you need my help." I replied, "What are you talking about?" He replied to me, "You know damn well what I'm talking about. Don't let him take control of you. If you think you can stop him without my help, go ahead, but if you think you need my help, then this is the time." I replied, "He is harmless, right?" He replied, "That's what I thought at first, but soon he will get in your mind and start controlling you. You will be forced to do everything he tells you. Would that be harmless?" I was silent. He said to me, "I want you to do a ritual. Now I will describe the process. Firstly, you need to cut a piece of meat from your right hand's palm." I asked him with surprise, "What?" He replied, "Do you have any other choices that will serve you better than just do what I say?" I thought to myself that he had a point. That broke the silence by telling me, "After you cut the piece of meat from your right hand's palm, you need to just hold it tightly in your left hand. By tightly, I mean as tight as possible. Then you need to paint your wrist red. Doesn't matter with what, just paint it red. After that, close your eyes shut and face east. Wait for a whisper in your right ear. As soon as you hear the whisper, open your hand. Someone will take the piece of meat from you and leave. Then you are allowed to open your eyes again, but if you open your eyes before you give the right person the piece of meat, it won't be pleasant for you." I said, "When do I do this?" He replied, "Tonight, after the clock hits 12. We stood there in silence. He broke the silence. Lastly, "What name did he give you?" I instantly said, "Einstein." He smiled and told me, "Funny, isn't it? I didn't understand what was funny. Then he started walking the other way without saying goodbye or anything. I thought it was kind of rude, but I went home as it was evening already, and I was going to have a long night tonight. I did everything he told me to, cut the piece from my hand, then painted my wrist red by the blood that was dripping from my hand after cutting it. After that, I faced east and waited for a long time. I was starting to think that I did all these for nothing, and nothing was going to happen. But to my surprise, I felt a hand trying to snatch the meat from my hand. It started to scratch my hand so bad with its sharp nails that my hand started to bleed. But I did not open my eyes or hand because I knew this wasn't the right person. Then I felt a snake climbing my body all the way to my closed hand. At that point, I was beyond terrified. But I trusted that guy more now, so I did not open my hand. After a while, I heard a whisper in my right ear, a familiar voice, the voice of the guy who told me to do all of these, whose name I did not know. He whispered, "Give it to me." I instantly opened my hands and felt like someone took the piece of meat from my hand gently. I opened my eyes to see my left hand bleeding like crazy. I took care of it. I couldn't sleep that night at all, but it worked. I stopped seeing Einstein until one day he randomly came in a dream and told me that he was not happy that I did that to him, and he will come again. But it doesn't bother me because now I know how to get rid of him, or do I? It was too much to cope with alone, so I decided to share this. Again, believe it or not, it is a real story. Man in my mirror. It all starts with me, who's 25 male, in the shower at no later than 7 p.m. When I get out of the shower and begin drying myself, I notice my sink mirror is a lot more steamed up than the rest of the glass panes in my other mirror. I thought this is a little odd, but thought nothing of it, until I noticed the paint and brick crumbling around the edges of the mirror. This mirror is tacky, no frame, just screwed in and some silver caps placed on top of those screws, so I just assume it's because the house is tacky too, which it was. Skip a few hours and I get out of bed to piss. I don't bother turning the lights on because it's lit up by the light on the landing. I finish up and start washing my hands, but I notice the mirror isn't really reflecting that well, much more like it was slightly transparent. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. I noticed what looked like the reflection on the lenses of glasses on the other side of the mirror. I thought to myself, if that's actually glasses, there's no further than 2 meters away. This obviously freaked me the fuck out, and I just noped off back to bed. A couple of days went by, and I just kind of forgot about it, until one day I thought about just checking. So I grabbed the screwdriver, and as soon as I reached up to turn the first screw, I heard clattering behind it. Instead of deterring me, this emboldened me. I had to know what the fuck was going on. I unscrewed the mirror, and to my horror, I found the mirror was in fact a two-way. Not only that, but I found the mirror was hiding a gaping hole in the wall, which led to about a 4-foot gap, and at the end of the crevice, another hole in the wall covered up by a plastic clip thing. Hard to explain, but kind of like a plate that clipped into this hole in the wall. So what do? Grab my toothbrush, stick my head and arm through my hole, and poke off this plate. It falls to the ground and I'm hit with a wave of cold air like I've just opened a window, but was it fuck a window? I looked through and I noticed old red bricks that looked 200 years old, even further behind a hole. At this point, I'm mortified, but I need to know what this place was. Who, if anyone, was watching me? I thought to myself, if I leave it too late, I'll never know. I've already left too much evidence of me finding out. If the clattering wasn't a person, the plate and two-way surely was. So if I left the plate on their side of the wall, they'd know. I went to my tool cupboard and grabbed my hammer. I couldn't be even slightly bothered that the landlord would definitely kick me out for smashing his wall down, but I just kind of felt compelled to find out. I began knocking my wall down. It took about 5 minutes to make a hole big enough for me to fit through. I climb in and begin on the other wall when I hear a few people talking. This deters me none. If anything, I smash faster. Once I begin making a hole big enough, I notice this room I'm about to enter is huge, like warehouse size. It's old and abandoned looking, dusty and decrepit. Once I've made a hole big enough, I climb through. Oddly, I still hear people talking, so I thought, I've got the drop on them. So I start creeping about, taking in the sights of this old warehouse, for lack of a better word. A collapsed roof, concrete flooring, multiple floors, though some had fell through. I get closer and closer to the chatter until I noticed an old 1960s-ish television, the one with the dials that was wide and had the TV in one half and just some speakers or something in the other. Still on, yet no signs of any wires, or any power source for that matter. As I get closer to the TV, it's playing a talk show. The voices I heard all became clear. When I was about 3 meters away, I noticed a sort of dilapidated wall on my right. Behind this wall was a throne of bricks. Atop the throne, a man, wearing gray overalls, a pair of thick squared glasses, and greasy receding hair. As he makes eye contact with me, he doesn't move. He just murmurs, "You're not supposed to be here." He repeats this while a gradually increasing smile adorns his dirty face. "You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here." He progressively gets louder and more erratic until I decide fuck this, and I run for the hole. And as I'm climbing through, I look back expecting him to have began chasing me. He hadn't moved. All I could see was the tips of his boots poking around the wall. All the while, he now began maniacally laughing. I get to the street and look to the side of this warehouse should have been on. Nothing, just more houses. Lit up with life like people lived there. I was utterly confused, but not confused enough to go back and check, so I left and went back to my mom's around the corner. I told her all about it, and she didn't believe a word I said. She actually got other family members around to find out if I was okay, and the only person who could see I was genuinely terrified was my brother. I don't know if he believed me, but he could tell I thought it was true. After a very rough sleep, I woke up and went into the living room to ask what they thought. They couldn't make heads or tails of me, so I asked my brother. He said, "I believe you." So I asked him to help me, and he said, "Whatever you need." I almost cried knowing that I at least had someone who trusted me. I said to him, "Grab a screwdriver." I don't know why, but I just thought with all the weird stuff like the no power, the weird talk from the guy, and the fact there was no fucking warehouse on the outside, there'd be a need for it. I took him to my house and I could see on his face he was just entertaining me. He didn't really believe me. He just wanted to help his mentally ill little brother at this point, something my mother was saying about all this. We got to the bathroom, and to my shock and simultaneous roll of eyes, the bathroom was completely back to normal. Not even a speck of brick dust in sight. I'd left that place so fucked that I just came to the conclusion it was the fucking devil or something, but I began to unscrew the mirror. Once I pulled away the mirror, I noticed immediately behind my wall was a big wooden door with little bits of graffiti. I noticed my brother's face drop. He knew there should be another house there, or at least more of my fucking wall. I run to my tool cupboard and grab my sledge this time. I go apeshit and smash the sink and the wall. I needed to know. Behind the wall was a door, as I'd expected. I opened this door and stuff fell out, like an old Hoover, bags, etc. It was a storage cupboard. My brother's face dropped. He was back to having reservations. He must have thought, "That's a fucking cupboard, mate." I was in disbelief too. How could this massive warehouse be gone? I thought this until I noticed something off about it. The wall in the right was really dark brown brick. The wall in front, light brown, no older than a year. I got a bit closer and noticed this fucking mortar was still wet. I thought, fuck this. I kicked the wall and it bowed and slowly tumbled, revealing exactly what I wanted, the warehouse. I kicked down the rest of the wall and my brother interrupted with, "I can hear that TV." We both climbed in and I began pointing out things I'd mentioned to prove I wasn't nuts. Everything I pointed to, my brother's unease grew. He must have been thinking, okay, where's the guy? We checked the throne out properly and it was just a tall seat made of bricks stacked against the wall. We checked around a little more, but Darren strayed too far from the hole we entered through, so we finished up poking around and decided to leave. As we turned around, he was stood about 10 meters away, just staring at the two of us. My brother, with zero hesitation, said fuck no, and bolted for the door. I was just stuck there, glued to the floor and deeply in shock. I tried to move, but to no avail. The man stood opposite me in the hole to the right of me, creating a triangle of me, him, and the hole. He muttered, "I thought I told you. You aren't meant to be here." I tried to reply, but I was just frozen. Then he moved as if to take a step towards me, and my body woke up. I sprinted for the hole, and as I got there, I turned back to see if he'd not moved like the last time, but instead he had. He'd moved to where I stood, and he was now on all fours, almost sniffing the floor or about to lick it or something. I didn't stick around to find out. When I got to my house front door, my brother was there, white as paper and shaking like a leaf. With no hesitation and probably an undue lack of sympathy, I said, "I fucking told you. and we have each other look before bolting back to my mom's house. When we got in, my mom said, "Well, is he lying?" My brother just told her to shut the fuck up, and we started bringing the police. We didn't know if he'd committed any crime or whatever, but surely the peephole was enough. The police said they'd come and look, but couldn't get someone out immediately. They came out early hours in the morning, and me and my brother, who'd not slept a wink, walked them to the house where they then went inside. I told them just before they entered to check behind the bathroom mirror as it might be reattached. Officer 1 rolled his eyes, and Officer 2 was already opening the door. They went inside, and about 15 minutes later, they came back out. Officer 2 threw up in the bin immediately, and Officer 1 told me to go back to my mom's where they'd inform us of what they found after they did some police stuff like calling it in, etc. When they got to my mom's, they asked everyone to sit down and said behind the mirror was a gap of about 2 foot before the next house. In between the two houses, what seemed like 5 to 10 semi-decayed and recently deceased animals, such as dogs and cats, they assumed. I interrupted and said, "What about the fucking warehouse?" They assured us there was no warehouse, but definitely something to look into. After weeks or months of dribs and drabs of information from the police, they finally gave us a definitive answer. Next door to us, there had been a man who used to live there. This house had metal on the windows and had been abandoned for years before I'd moved in anyway, and he had severe special needs. I asked what he looked like, and they described him as wearing glasses and long receding hair. I said, "That's the guy," but they replied, "He died in that house about 9 years ago." I was in disbelief. There was no warehouse as they'd ripped down the two houses entirely. There was no man as he died almost a decade ago. No TV, no peephole, no throne. I was at a loss, thinking maybe me and my brother are fucking nuts. Maybe my house was haunted. Maybe this, maybe that. Until the other week, I drove through my old street and past my old house. And in place of my old building was a new build. In the front yard of this new build was a man, dirty overalls, long greasy hair, and thick glasses. He looked up to meet eyes with me, and as I stared back, he shot me back a smug little grin, baring his rotten yellow teeth. In shock, I stopped the car. I rolled down my passenger window and spoke, "Who are you?" He uttered back, almost proudly, "The man of your dreams." I just rolled my window up, drove home, and cried like a baby. I don't know if this man will be behind my next mirror or is already in the one I've got. But one thing's for sure, I'm not gonna find out. Hi Snook, I love your channel, dude. I listen to you while I play Skyrim, and my favorites are the Skinwalker stories. Anyway, I'm writing this to submit my own story. I was hesitant at first, but after I saw the video posted today, I really wanted to submit my own story. This takes place in Western Kentucky, and it freaked me out. Hey man, thanks for the nice words and really interesting intro. I'm excited to get into this one. And he said, for context, my sister was an adult and she had her own house near her dad's family. Back in 2016, when I was 7, my mom stopped taking her medication and she went a little crazy, believing my grandmother, who we were living with, was trying to control her and stuff like that. She took me, who was 7, and my brother, who was 14, to stay with my sister at her house in a small town in Western Kentucky. It is the definition of rural. Train tracks running straight through the town, one single main street and 2 or 3 side streets, one restaurant, and tiny post office. We went up there around Christmas time, so it got dark around 5 p.m. I, being the dumb 7-year-old, just thought, hey, this is cool. I haven't seen my sister in a while. I get to hang out with my brother. It's Christmas. I didn't take into account how weird it was. My sister's little trailer home was situated right at the edge of the woods, so it was like some kind of horror movie. The house always creeped me out, even before this story. My mom would take us on late night trips to Walmart and stuff like that, and we would get back at around 11 p.m., and it was just creepy to me. Being 7 and reading spooky stories, pitch black night with no moon, icy cold, and dead quiet. We were returning home one night, and I was looking out of the window, thinking about my grandma and what I would get for Christmas, all that childish stuff. When we neared the house, I was looking at the train tracks and tree line adjacent to the road when I see this tall, gaunt, eerie thing. It was emaciated. I could see its ribs even though it was almost pitch black and 20 feet away. It was all skin and bones, but it was stretched tight over its frame, like it didn't belong in that skin. Its head was a deer skull with burning red eyes. Looking at it made me feel like I was staring at the sun, a burning pain in my eyes. I looked away, scared out of my pants. I just thought it was some mean local prank, but when I gathered up the courage to look back, it was following us. We were going 50 or so miles an hour, but it was just walking like a leisure walk, keeping up with us and still staring into my soul. I tugged on my brother's arms, but trying to get his attention to look, but he was asleep, and my mom didn't see it. It was about 5 more minutes before we got home, but I didn't dare look back at the thing. I thought it was the devil, and I was going to be snatched and sent to hell. When we pulled into the gravel driveway of that house, it was still there, but at the tree line about 40 yards away, I was so scared that when we got inside, I was in tears. But my mom and siblings thought I was just being a baby, missing my normal bed and home. I didn't know how to explain at the time what I saw. That night, I tried to sleep, but every little bump scared me. Nothing could help me, and I thought it was going to bust through the wall and kill me for looking at it. And after that night, I never saw it again. A few short days later, me, my brother, and my mom got into a car accident, and we never went back to that town. And I'm glad. That place has too many bad memories. After years of reading books and watching videos, native legends, and I'm not sure if it was a skinwalker or a wendigo, but I know it was not of this world. Years later, in 2021, my sister and I was talking about it, and I told her about this story. She told me that she and her friends used to try witchcraft and other things in that house. I think my sister drew something or summoned something to that house, and it followed us. Thank God, I haven't seen it since. Sorry for such the long post, Nook. I really hope you read this on a video. And I guess it's your lucky day. This was read in a video. I really enjoyed that story. Skinwalker stories are my favorite, and that's scary. That's good you're all right, though, and you didn't get eaten by a wendigo or skinwalker or something. And no worries for the long post. Guys, send in as long as posts as you want. I'm literally down to read, pages upon pages upon pages of stuff, as long as the story is pretty decent. So, send in your stories. My email is down in the description below, so feel free to send any story or work on it and send it, because I'll be doing these videos pretty often now. But yeah, I enjoyed that one. So comment down below what you thought about that one, and into the next one. I've predicted the death of 3 people. I know the title sounds insane. You might presume that I'm a psychic or a future teller person, but believe me, I am not one of them. I'm just a university finance student who's interested in literature, art, and history. It all started when I was in the 9th grade. My cousin's sister's wedding was near, and all our relatives came from out of state. One of them was our very old aunt, who is nearing 70 since the day she came. She felt a little sick, but everyone chalked it up to the travel sickness. On the day of the wedding, while I was busy with the preparations, I was coming down the stairs and just saw her sitting on a couch. Maybe she was asleep or having a nap, I don't know, but I got this weird sense I can't still understand what it was. I frequently get deja vu, but it was not the same. I got this feeling that this is her last day. This feeling was just a few seconds, and then I just shrugged it off and told myself I'm so rude and stupid, and proceeded with my stuff. Just after the wedding was over, we got the sad news that she passed away. I was devastated. I told my mom that it's my fault because I thought of it. My mom and dad reassured me that it's nothing. She was old and sick, and it's not my fault. The next incident happened with one of my mom's friends. She was telling my dad how he was having a cold, and again that dreaded feeling happened. And next thing we knew, he got the sad message. After this, maybe 2 years after this incident, my maternal grandpa was sick, and we knew his time was near. But I had a dream 5 days before his passing that I enter a room where his funeral was happening, and I look at the clock, 11:55, and sadly, this deja vu was happening in reality. 10 days after his passing, I still had a dreading feeling. I told my friends, and they said maybe it's grief or high school senior pressure, but after a few days, we got a sudden news that our aunt passed in the sleep, the same night when I had a dreading nightmare of a funeral or death-related stuff. It's my deepest, darkest secret, which I believe is a curse, or I don't know, as my best friends say, it's a high level of sixth sense. I don't know what this is, but believe me, it's the worst feeling ever. Don't know if this is a great story to share. I'm not that great at writing, but it's all right, man. Good writing. And if that's true, that's really interesting. You may have some sort of, psychic intuition or something along those lines. I don't know. But if anything, hopefully you don't have any more, passings in your family or close life. But, if that happens again, email back to the email and we'll put you in a future video because that'd be really, really interesting. But yeah, guys, comment down below what you think about this one. This happened a couple months ago. I don't know if it's a scary story because there's no like demons or anything in it, but I did get attacked by an old guy in a warehouse, and this is how it happened. I was hanging out with a couple of girls, me and my friend, and let's call him Ad. We were drinking, and one of the girls was extremely drunk, and we didn't know it at the time, but her family had gang connections, so we're in this warehouse. It's about 11 p.m. and a flashlight starts to shine in, so we're all aware that there was somebody circling the place we're in. Me and my friend Ad got up and went to check out what it was. We couldn't find anybody at first, so we got back into the warehouse. The girls are sitting there, then we hear someone yelling, "Who the fuck are you? And why are you with my property?" I'm baffled and just say, "What?" Then this old guy, I thought he was a crackhead, runs into the warehouse with a baseball bat, one of those tiny aluminum ones, and starts waving it around me and Ad heads. We ask him, "Who the fuck are you?" And he gets aggressive and saying, "You don't know who I am. I'll show you who I fucking am." One of the girls runs out of the warehouse and calls her mom while me and Adrian are dealing with this crazy guy. The second girl we are with starts yelling about how to not do anything, and she shows him. I was too drunk to understand that he keeps yelling and threatening me and my friend. I tell him that we're young and minors. He said he doesn't care and tries to swing the bat at me. I grab it and put him back in a headlock and slam him with my friend, and he grabs the bat and I start hitting him. My friend jumps in, and then the girl starts hitting me after about 30 seconds. I get up with my friend who still has the bat. And this pussy-ass old guy is still telling us that he'll beat the fuck out of us, and he has people that is going to come and get us. I just start yelling at him that I'm about to shoot him, and to get the fuck out of here. And my dad's coming. I didn't have a gun, but I was terrified that this guy was about to do something to me and my friend, so adrenaline was pumping. He gets scared after that and leaves with his daughter, or whoever that was to him. Then the girl that ran out prior comes in and tells us we need to get the fuck out of here because he's waiting for us in the bushes and waiting for us to come out, so we blindly sprinted the girl's car in the woods because the warehouse is like in a deep section of the woods. It's abandoned. And, well, yeah, we got out of there. Later, I talked to the girl who knew the guy, and he was a gang member a couple towns over. That, for some reason, had her location. Pretty crazy. A nightmare. The shape-shifting seductress. In the dead of night, around 2:30 or 3 a.m., I found myself trapped in a nightmare that has left me shaken. Being a 20-year-old, light-skinned North Indian man, I've always had a weakness for tall blondes. They're exactly my type. The dream began with her, a beautiful, tall, blonde woman beckoning me to follow her into a room. Something about her was irresistible, and being somewhat adventurous, I followed willingly. Once inside, the light suddenly went out. Feeling bold in the darkness, I began removing my clothes. But that's when everything changed. I caught a glimpse of her in the mirror and saw it. That smile, that horrifying, unnatural smile that stretched too wide across her face, revealing teeth that seemed too numerous, too sharp. A cold dread washed over me as a terrifying thought crossed my mind. What if she transformed into an elderly woman? I've harbored a deep-seated fear of older women since childhood, associated them with witches from the countless horror stories I consumed when I was younger. Junji Ito's fashion model certainly didn't help matters, with its grotesque imagery forever etched in my mind. Her eyes never left mine in the mirror's reflection, and they seemed to grow deeper, darker, as though they were bottomless pits rather than human eyes. The temperature in the rooms dropped suddenly, and goosebumps spread across my exposed skin. Sensing my mounting fear, she darted into another room, moving with an unnatural, fluid grace that seemed almost predatory. Despite every instinct screaming at me to run away, my curiosity, or perhaps some darker compulsion, drove me to pursue her. The hallway seemed to stretch and distort as I followed, the shadows growing thicker with each step. When I finally found her, she was standing right beside me, appearing without warning or sound. She flashed that same terrifying smile, too wide, too knowing. Then she began to laugh, her shoulders shaking and head tilting back in apparent mirth, but no sound came out. Her mouth moved in silent, mocking laughter, creating an eerie, quiet horror that sent shivers down my spine. In that moment of voiceless laughter, her features seemed to shift and blur, as though her face couldn't quite decide what form to take. This silent display of impossible amusement was the final terror that jolted me awake. I sat upright in my bed, gasping for breath, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. The darkness of my room seemed alive, pulsating with unseen presences. After calming myself, I immediately woke my sister to tell her about the nightmare. What's most disturbing is that I recall having a similar dream when I was younger, though back then the woman had long black hair cascading down her back, not the golden blonde locks of tonight's apparition. In that childhood dream, she was merely present, watching from a distance, never engaging directly as she had tonight. This transformation in her appearance has left me wondering if she might be some kind of shapeshifter, an entity that has been visiting my dreams for years, changing her appearance from black hair to blonde because she somehow knows my preferences have evolved as I've grown older. The thought that this entity might be adapting to match my desires, learning what form would most effectively lure me closer, is what truly terrifies me. I fear that the next time I close my eyes, she'll be waiting, wearing yet another face, one even more irresistible and perhaps more dangerous. Hey Snook, I can't fall asleep without noise, so your channel is perfect for me. LOL. Hey, thanks. I appreciate you watching the channel. And let's get into this story. And he says, well, I've got one hell of a story for you. All right. When I was 15, me and my best friends were spending the night at my grandma's house. Since like most teenage girls, I had my ups and downs with my parents. I would often go to grandma's house for an escape and just kind of a safe chill zone for me. Originally, 2 other girls were supposed to stay the night with us, but they decided to spend the night at somebody else's house, but never told us. We fell asleep on the couches with the doors unlocked, which usually would have been okay where I live, considering we live in a small town in British Columbia, Canada, where nothing really happens. And I woke up to somebody entering my grandma's home. I was super confused and told her I think she had the wrong house. That's when I realized something was wrong. At first, I thought she was just drunk and had the wrong house, but I quickly realized that she was just under the influence of hard drugs. She was frantic, rummaging around my grandma's kitchen, mumbling stuff like, "They're coming," and "Where's the upstairs in this place?" I woke up my best friend at this point, and she turned over to me and mouthed, "What the fuck?" We remained calm, but soon after we realized she had a kitchen knife. Initially, she said she needed to K herself and started trying to plunge this knife into her abdomen, but she kept hollowing her back so it wouldn't stab her. We told her that she didn't want to do that and tried to convince her not to. Bad decision. She said we knew too much and said that we needed to key ourselves too. I tried explaining that I was only 15 and that my best friend was 14. I even told her our names and that I was a junior Olympic gymnast who trained 5+ days a week. She soon started swinging the knife at us and ended up getting my best friend in the chest. Somehow, thankfully, it didn't cause any damage. She didn't need any stitches. We think maybe the underwire of her bra got in the way. At that point, she ran out of the back door and I ran out the front. Now, where my grandma lives, there are multiple small apartments in a row and only one way to the parking lot because of the bowling alley beside it and the fence going around, so please keep that in mind. I ran out of the front and looked behind, and that's when I felt blood start running down my forearm. This was really happening. It gets fuzzy after that, and I don't know which order everything came in, so I'm just going to tell you what I remember. At one point, I was on the ground and she had my hands pinned down with her legs and was holding the knife above her head, ready to plunge the knife into my chest. Thank God I had strong legs because I managed to get her off of me. At another point, I was trying to run for the parking lot, but she grabbed me and stabbed me in between my ribs, which punctured my lung. There was also a time where she had me up against the fence trying to stab me in the head, screaming, "Die, die, die." She missed and stabbed me in the shoulder. Overall, I got stabbed 8 times, not including all the smaller lacerations all over my body. I then somehow managed to squeeze myself through a hole in the fence and laid down on the sidewalk. I tried yelling for my best friend, but I was so weak and the blood was pooling in my lungs. I remember looking at my legs and seeing a huge pool of blood. I'd accepted my fate. I knew I was dying. I somehow still had my phone, but just like the typical horror movie fashion, it's dead. My best friend found me eventually and held me. I'll never forget switching over from saying, "We'll be okay," to "You'll be okay," when the ambulance she had called on my grandma's home phone was taking too long to get us. Somehow, by chance, an ambulance drove by and my best friend waved them down. They didn't get out at first. I think it was because my best friend was covered in my blood. She ran over back to me, and that's when they realized she wasn't the danger. I was in and out of consciousness, but I made it back to the hospital. I don't remember much from the first couple days considering the shock, blood loss, and pain meds they put me on. I need surgery in my legs and a chest tube since my lung ended up collapsing in the hospital. Unfortunately, this has left me with permanent nerve damage, mobility issues, and severe PTSD, so unfortunately, gymnastics is off the table for me now. I've come to terms with it though. Since I was a minor, my name was never released, Canadian laws, and I'd prefer to keep it that way. But if you don't believe me, there's articles online. If you look up the name Sasha Prokaski, the details in the article will line up with what I just told you. Anyways, thanks for letting me share my story, Snook. And a message to all those out there. Lock your doors, goddammit. And that was one hell of a final story for this video. Yeah, I'm glad you're safe if you're listening to this final story. And the person who wrote this, I'm really glad you're safe. I'm really glad you made it through. And that sucks that you can't continue to do gymnastics anymore, but you're alive and hopefully well now. And yeah, that was crazy stories in this video and crazy final story. Hopefully you guys are all okay. If you want your story read in a future video, please email it at the email in the description or pinned comment. I might make a comment about it. I'm not sure. I'll probably see in the moment. Yeah, thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. These videos probably will be shorter since your guys' stories are kind of shorter, not big novels or anything like most Reddit stories or scary stories. So yeah, these videos will be great. I really am happy this is kind of a new series that you guys enjoy because I like hearing from you guys. It's a lot more personal, and I feel like, these true stories are way better. And yeah, thank you so much for listening to the entire video and my yap at the end of the video. You guys are the best. And yeah, please subscribe and like if you made it to the end. You guys are phenomenal. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time.